I want to talk to you about airplanes right now, and specifically coming up on Thanksgiving. We were just talking to Phil LeBeau. Huge number of people expected to get on airplanes for Thanksgiving. I know you've said that your family is going to hang tight and celebrate in 2021. But how dangerous do you think it is really? And just let me give you a stat here. If you were rolling through Salt Lake City, for example, where the positivity rate is something like 22% right now, that means if there were 300 people getting on an airplane, 60 of them would be COVID positive. What does that say to you?
Well, look, the airplane itself is a distinct risk from the trip to and from the airport and just moving around. There are risks associated with being on an airplane. We perceive them to be lower. I've worked with the airlines on some of these things. There's some mixed data on it, but overall we think that the air quality is pretty high on an airplane and the risk is lower unless you're, sitting next to someone who has COVID, you're not wearing a mask, you're not taking some prudent precautions. But the bigger risk is just the mobility. When you look at this epidemic from the beginning and you look at how the contours of the epidemic rose and fell, it tracked pretty closely with mobility. The more that people moved around, the more that they spread the virus. And there's been some really elegant studies showing that if people on the whole just go to the store one less time a week, you could substantially reduce spread. So the fact that so many people are going to be moving around at the same time. Yeah,
but just to clarify, if 20% of the folks on an airplane were COVID positive, even with masks, you think that's okay? That doesn't make sense.
No, I think it's a risk when you have places where there's a great density of infection, in places where it's epidemic, you're going to have more people coming out of that region who have the virus, and that's why we've seen places where this has become epidemic. They've closed bars, they've closed restaurants. You're right. If you're taking a flight out of Salt Lake City and a high percentage of the local population is infected, more people are likely to be on the plane who have the infection. The risk of spread in transportation correlates with the prevalence in the community in which the people derive. So that is absolutely a fact. But the bigger risk of Thanksgiving is just going to be, it's not going to be any one setting. It's going to be the mobility, the people moving around and people coming together in congregate settings where they feel safe, but there might be someone who's asymptomatic.
Right, from different places where there's 22%, yeah, they're traveling around. I mean, it just seems like you don't have to think that hard about it. If they're dissuading gatherings of 10 people or more, how do you put 100 people on an airplane? I mean, it just, that's 10 times 10.
Look,
I mean,
we're having
if you're not
outbreaks
allowing
right now
any gatherings, I don't know how you can feel safe getting on an airplane.
We're seeing outbreaks right now in schools. The local school district where I am right now, the middle school and the high school is closed for a number of days now because of a very large outbreak in the last 24 hours. That had something to do with Halloween and parents saying, well, maybe I'll just have 5 people over or 10 people over, and now you have outbreaks flowing from that. There's no question about that. And so I think the bottom line message to the American people is this is really one last surge of infection that we have to grapple with. I do believe 2021 is going to be better. Naturally, we're going to have technological tools that's going to help us thwart this infection better. The vaccine from companies like Pfizer, I'm on the board of Pfizer, the monoclonal antibodies. We have to get through the next 2 or 3 months. And so this is going to be really a temporary pain. We're not going back to the broad-based lockdowns mitigation. We're smarter than that now. We can target the mitigation now. But we are going to have to take prudent steps. And to your point, Joe, you made before, you're smart enough to know not to go to a bar. People need to take prudent steps in their own personal lives, and that means reducing their mobility, trying to find excuses not to go out, not excuses to go out.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.